Hey, Browns fans, Spencer German, Anthony Moeglin covering the Browns practice number 10 today in Berea at the team facility. Anthony, I know you're dealing with the storms like everybody who was out here. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be the second practice that had fans in attendance, but got rained out by the severe storms that passed through, and so it ended up just being a team practice inside the field house without fans in attendance, and we were on our merry way. So unfortunate for the fans that weren't able to be in attendance. We'll obviously recap a lot of what I was able to see at the practice today. But there are on a day with the weather being a factor, there are a bit. It feels like there's a million different storylines that we can sort of cover and talk about from today, newsworthy things that are going on. So I'm going to leave it to you, Megs. Like, let's play Russian roulette here. What do you want to start with?
First of all, I'm glad to see you're standing outside for whatever came through Cleveland. As you can see, I had to call an audible here. I'm in a Panera because whatever came through Cleveland, vengeance to it. Trees down everywhere, power's out. So hopefully everyone's taking care of themselves, staying safe out there. But I think we got to start where everyone else is starting. There's trade rumors swirling every direction.
Yeah.
There's a ton of them out there. Obviously, the one that hit home to us is the Brandon Aiyuk stuff, and it's certainly intriguing, and it's caused for a lot of different scenario planning from both the 49er side and from the Brown side.
Yeah, and I think that is probably a good place to start with everything kind of transpiring with that and going on with that right now. And it's certainly an evolving situation over the last 24 hours. I mean, Anthony, if you sat on Twitter at all on Monday throughout the day, it was pretty much people saying it was a done deal that he was Brandon Aiyuk was going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And then later in the night, we get the report from NBC Sports West Coast that apparently it's actually down to the Browns and the 49ers, and the parameters of the deal have already sort of been agreed to in principle, and it's just about Aiyuk now negotiating a contract extension with the teams. And then we got the news today from, I think, both Adam Schefter of ESPN and Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network that the Steelers now are back in the mix and they've re-engaged conversations. So it is clearly an evolving conversation, an evolving situation, one that doesn't have a definitive answer to this point. What I'm more interested in, I'm sure what you guys as Browns fans are more interested in as well, is just how the Browns are sort of talking about and handling the situation. What I found interesting, Anthony, was just the you always know you're going to get sort of a non-answer from Kevin Stefanski on stuff like that. I mean, it's par for the course. But the fact that it was very much sort of drilled into others who spoke today that, we're focused on the guys in this building. It was clear that there was some sort of mention, some sort of training that was done to sort of prep them for that question. I found that interesting because generally if you're, preparing for something like that, there's probably a little bit of smoke where there's some fire, and you got to kind of make sure your players and coaches are saying the right things or the things that you want them to say about it, so that doesn't become a bigger story. So I found that a little bit interesting. But yeah, the theme from Stefanski, I know Chad O'Shea, wide receivers coach, talked today, and even Cedric Tillman, who's obviously part of that wide receiver room. The theme was very much about, hey, I'm focused on what I can control. We're focused on the guys that are in this building. And that's kind of what you expect from them. But I thought it was interesting that they all kind of had the same cadence about about what they were going to say when asked that question.
Yeah, and we see all this news breaking on X and on social media and all sorts of different places, but nobody knows what actually the offer was. Like, some people say Amari Cooper's involved in it, others people say he wasn't. You can get some defenders, like, is Greg Newsome in there? Is it Wyatt Teller? Like, who are the big pieces? Yes, if this trade does come through, there will be a big name that is a Cleveland Brown that's going to go to San Francisco, but also too, none of it may happen. There's a very good chance that it just doesn't happen. And there's also an opportunity that, hey, maybe San Francisco was leaking some of this information to get Pittsburgh to come to the table with a better offer. You just never know how some of this stuff works. And that's why we love the NFL so much, is because it becomes this soap opera, this reality TV show where we can be on Twitter, making these trades up and all sorts of stuff. And then, it boils down to potentially nothing at the end of the day. So yeah, you're right. You picked up on it right away. You texted all of us like, hey, they got these stock answers. Obviously they practiced it. And then you put the video side by side and you can definitely tell that like, hey, something was said, hey, let's just be very top level with this. We don't know what's going on. Maybe Brandon Aiyuk is a Cleveland Brown by the end of the week. Maybe he isn't. But for now, let's just talk about it like we're just going to handle our business, what's happening inside those walls of the cross-country mortgage field house behind you, and just take care of business that way.
Yeah, it could be something. It could be nothing. We don't know. I think what's also interesting about this, you bring up Amari Cooper, a lot of praise for just Amari and what he means to the team, because there was a lot of follow-ups asked just about, whether or not he's part of it or not, or if that comes to fruition. What does he mean to this team and his impact and all these different things. So he certainly is an appreciated member of this group. And for now, he still is a Cleveland Brown. I do think what's interesting too with Amari, we talk about all the time, like guy's a consummate pro. I know he held out a mini camp earlier in the summer, but the fact that I think he understands how it is. He talked about that a little bit when he spoke at the Greenbrier for the first time since the holdout situation, where he kind of said like, hey, the business is the business, and you just kind of realize that and roll with it, even though I don't necessarily love change. So if there's anybody that you trust is gonna not take this personally or not like let it affect him out on the field or leading up to the season or whatever, it's Amari Cooper. And at the end of the day, like we're talking about something that's only hypothetical right now. We'll have to see what comes to fruition these next couple of days, but it certainly does seem like the Browns are in the mix on this thing and they are pursuing Brandon Aiyuk. I do think, Anthony, we can maybe kind of conclude this part of the conversation here, but I'll say this. I think Amari Cooper's it's interesting because I think Amari Cooper's like a perfect fit for this team. What he brings to the table, the type of player that he is, the personality that he is. He's not this boisterous guy. He's very like, show up with your lunch pail and go to work. And I think that fits this culture so well. And he's obviously been a great leader on this team. You don't want to mess with the good things sometimes, but I also like, and that's my one holdup is like, I don't know, like, do you want to mess up the vibe with the team by doing something like this? But in the same breath, I look at Brandon Aiyuk and I see like a younger Amari Cooper. Like the talent is undeniable. What he brings to the table is undeniable. So I love the move from a football standpoint. And it's just going to be about if it happens, what that does or what that means for the locker room and the team moving forward.
Yeah, and I wrote about this last night over on the site, and it's very clear that Andrew Berry is going to be a guy who gets rid of somebody 1 year early as opposed to holding on to them for 1 year too long. And that's been the case, in his entire tenure to this point. And I don't see that changing. Yes, sometimes it's going to hurt and sometimes it would be hard, but also there's a real scenario where Amari Cooper and Brandon Aiyuk are Cleveland Browns next year, and you deal with other guys and you move money in different places. But like you said, it's an opportunity to get younger with a guy who's equally skilled, who comes to the table with some of that same skill set that Amari has. And I think whichever way they decide to go, it's going to be the right way. If they keep Amari, that's awesome. If they do, move on to Brandon Aiyuk, that's equally good too. So I don't think this is a win-win scenario. I don't think you can go wrong either way.
Yeah, I do think right now this organization's earned some trust from the fan base in terms of the way that they do business, and we'll see again if it plays out that way and what happens. But obviously, a situation Cleveland fans have their finger on the pulse of at the moment. The other big news of the day, Anthony, I think was Kevin Stefanski. I thought he'd wait till Thursday, but he did share with us today before practice that Deshaun Watson will not be playing in the first preseason game against the Packers on Saturday. Jordan Love, conversely, for Green Bay, is expected to play. And Kevin Stefanski kind of joked that, maybe him and Matt LaFleur sort of talked beforehand. Maybe they found out, hey, we're not playing Myles Garrett, so they decided they were going to play Jordan Love. So I thought that was kind of funny. But it sounds like those two star players, two of your most important players, will not be suiting up for Cleveland on Saturday. But Kevin Stefanski did say that some starters will play and that they'll play about 10 plays, somewhere in that range, in this game this weekend. Your thoughts, though, on Deshaun not playing, because I do think this is another interesting conversation, given that there's certainly reason to believe he needs to get as many live reps as possible, get that shoulder sort of back in the swing of things before the season obviously gets rolling on September 8th.
Yeah, if it were up to me, I'd have him playing. I think that even one series is just good enough just to get the blood flowing again, knock the cobwebs off. Right, the last time he played was Week 10 of last season, so that's a very
Yeah.
long time going without playing football. And when you look at the preseason, the way that it's laid out for Cleveland, like next week you're going to have the Vikings in town with those joint practices,
and they treat those like a preseason game.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to the. I think we're going in the same direction with this, Anthony, because like you got to wonder if he's not playing Saturday, does he play at all in the actual preseason games?
Because Week 3 in the preseason, you're playing in Seattle at the 7 p.m. local kickoff, which is 10 p.m. Eastern, right? You're not going to get home till 4, 5, 6 in the morning, after that. So are the starters even going to go to that game, right? Like Week 3 has become such just a turn the page kind of a day, or a turn the page kind of a week. Like, what is that even going to look like? So,
now I was going to say, I'm pretty sure last year we saw the starters play in that third preseason game for Cleveland. Like I know Deshaun played a little bit. I think he played like maybe a series or two. I think it was 2 series. Because if you remember, like the whole debate over like Denzel and should he have played, should he not have played, because he left that game with a concussion against the Chiefs. So that was the way they deployed it last year. So there's a chance he maybe does play in that game. But I'm with you. Like it's an interesting scenario that you kind of look ahead at now and say, okay, well, where will he play if he's not playing this weekend?
Yeah, I'm just saying, if it were up to me, man, I'd have him out there on Saturdays, just because it's a great opportunity to do so, right? Just get everyone out there. You're at home. You're going to be at home on September 8th. You need just to get that rep, just to get that one rep of, hey, we're going to go through all of warm-ups. This is how it's going to feel. This is what it's going to look like. Just get back into the swing of things. It's the age-old debate. Everyone has it, and we'll have it again next year as well. But if it were up to me, I'd have him out there. But that's why Kevin makes a lot more than I do, I guess.
No doubt. And I think it's a debate that fans are having obviously as well. And I think it's interesting, and we'll have to kind of see what the strategy is here with Deshaun moving forward. But I'm with you. I think those reps matter, especially for a guy coming off of a serious shoulder injury who's trying to still kind of reclaim a former version of himself. Speaking of live reps, though, the Browns did get some live reps in today out of the practice field, or really inside the field house. And I'll tell you, a disappointing day is maybe the word I'll use for Deshaun, which comes on the heels of a disappointing day, I think, yesterday. Defense really dominated yesterday. Didn't matter who was at quarterback. They were just wreaking havoc, getting in the backfield, causing a lot of problems. Rightfully so, I guess, with it being Myles Garrett's first day participating in 11-on-11 stuff yesterday. He was back out there again today, and the defense still winning a good amount of reps. But there were some moments more so from Jameis Winston, who lit it up inside the field house. He threw 3 different, deep touchdown passes. One was like a 30-yarder to one of the backup tight ends. He hit Cedric Tillman on like a 45-yard bomb. He hit Jalen Darden, who's had a really good camp so far and continued that today on a 45-yard bomb. So all 3 of those plays were awesome. Jameis was really in rhythm. He was throwing in time and kind of just making a quick read and throwing. He was the most effective of the quarterbacks today. And on the other side, Deshaun struggling a little bit. He had another interception that he threw today to MJ Emerson, and there seemed to be a little bit of some I guess frustration from him at points during teamwork and during 11-on-11s. And again, not what Browns fans want to see. I always like to say, Anthony, I caution against leaning one way or another on anything that you see in practice, whether it's the good stuff or the bad stuff. So I don't want to read into it too much here, but obviously back-to-back days where Deshaun struggled a little bit. And I will say, I'll give him some credit. He had the one really, really nice play where he aired it out deep to Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman caught 2 deep passes today for touchdowns, one from Jameis, one from Deshaun, and those are 2 of the highlights of the day.
Yeah, ton to unpack there, and I want to start with the Deshaun stuff. And like, you get to day 10 of camp, right? We're a week and a half in. You've been going against these guys day in and day out, and there is, you get to that point of frustration, right? You come off a bad day yesterday, and it's not that long removed from what would have been Sunday or Saturday, no, Sunday, when the offense came and lit it up, right? What that tells me is it's a mark of a really good team, right? When you have back-to-back days or different days where the offense wins and the defense wins, and maybe some days it's going to be more of that tug of war where you get some wins from both sides of the ball. That's just the mark of a really, really good football team. And yeah, you want it to be clean. Obviously, I wasn't there. You were there. You saw it. And yeah, sometimes it does get a little more ugly than good. But that's what practice is for, especially early on in camp. Making sure that you're testing the limits. You're learning this new offense. You're going against the best defense in the football against, two cornerbacks in Denzel Ward and MJ Emerson, who are, top 10 guys in the league. So yeah, there's going to be that frustration there. And that does, does it make you feel a little uneasy that he's not clean right now? For sure. But you understand that, hey, this is a longer process. You get into it. What I'm really excited about, though, we didn't touch on this earlier, is watching Jameis Winston on Saturday. That guy, he's known to just light it up and let it rip. And I'm really excited to see that. And hearing the report from you today that he just was letting that thing fly just the way that we're all used to seeing Jameis do. And I can't wait to see what he brings to the table on Saturday afternoon.
I think there's definitely a lot of reason to be excited about Jameis. He's been pretty solid in camp, and he's obviously a solid, I think, just addition to the team in general. So I'm sure fans are going to kick out of seeing him. And yeah, the Deshaun stuff, like, it's concerning. I always like to remind people this time of year too, like, defense generally ahead of the offense. I've always been told that still early on in camp. But yeah, in the same breath, like, I'm not going to freak out, but I'm all, you give Deshaun some time, you give Deshaun some. He still has a runway here to sort of get himself ready for the start of the season. It's concerning, but it doesn't have to be us, definitively deciding anything about him before the season gets going, obviously.
And think about it too, Spence. You make a good point. Like, at this point in camp, the defense is oftentimes ahead of the offense. And, the reason being is that on offense, you need all 11 to do their job on one play for it to be successful, right? You could have Amari Cooper break free, be running 20 yards open down the field, and your left tackle gives up a pressure and the play's over, or the quarterback slips or whatever. For defense, one person has to make a play when the ball's in the air. So it does, when you think about it like that, it's like, all right, the offense has to get all on the same page. For defense, you guys can just go and ball out. If the defensive end makes a mistake, it doesn't affect MJ Emerson on the back end, So it's like, from that perspective, think of it like that way, like, hey, the offense is really starting to continue to work there and come together, especially early on in camp. So it's exciting. It's a good thing, I think. But like you said, let's get it cleaned up and continue to start working a little bit better. One guy I wanted to ask about is Cedric Tillman. Everything we see on social media, on Twitter, on X, is that this dude's just taking the top off, going deep. He's that big body. He's fast. The last time he played significant time was 3 years ago at Tennessee, where he just lit up the college football before a pretty significant ankle injury, and it looks like he's starting to trend back that direction.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting too, from coming out of college, like, he was his role in that offense in Tennessee was simple. It was like, hey, just run verticals and try to get open. Like, that was it. So I think last year there were some struggles there for him in terms of, like, learning the playbook and more, they're more advanced in that way. He talked about that a little bit today, because you did get a chance to talk to him, and he kind of said, like, yeah, I'm focused on trying to learn these things, and it's year 2 and it's slowed down a little bit. And so I do think you're seeing that progression. The fact that he's playing so well, though, I'm fascinated by Anthony, because I've said it leading up to training camp, like, there's a scenario where he plays so well that maybe the Browns were like, hey, you know what? Maybe we can trade Elijah Moore at the end of camp, like, guy who's in the final year of his deal. We don't owe him anything money-wise, financially, like, there's no dead money. So I'm fascinated to see if he can continue to grow. But yeah, he's flashed a lot. He's been really, really good. And that continued, obviously, today.
And it's really good to see, too, like, obviously he's had some success taking the top off like he had today, that little sluggo he had for a 50-yard touchdown. But also there's clips of him coming across the middle, making those tough catches and being that big body. That's my favorite part about him, is he brings something to the table that nobody else does. Yes, Coop's got that 6'2", 6'3" frame, and he can be a tactician in routes. And then you got Jerry Jeudy, who's more your speed guy, Elijah Moore, who's going to be more your finesse guy. But, Cedric Tillman stands 6'4", 6'5", and he's your big body, go get it kind of a guy where you can throw one up to him and trust he's going to make a big play for you.
It is starting to rain a little bit here, so I don't want to take too much more time, because I don't want to get drenched on. If you would see me looking around, that's why, because I'm like, is it raining harder over there? Am I going to be in trouble? The final couple notes I'll give you guys here. Quentin Jefferson was awesome again today until he did leave practice with an injury. Didn't seem like it was too serious. He kind of stayed out there. He just didn't play anymore. So we'll see what the update is on that, but he continues to dominate. Elijah Moore, as we mentioned, his name was back today in a larger capacity. He was doing individual stuff yesterday. He did participate in team stuff today. Jerry Jeudy did not, as far as I noticed. I didn't see him run any routes or anything like that, so he kind of had another easier day. He was doing individual stuff again. Juan Thornhill was out. That was a new one. He is apparently dealing with an illness. And Sam Kamara, who left practice yesterday with an injury, was back out there as well today. We did not obviously have Zadarius Smith, who was missing in action yet again after he left practice on the cart yesterday with that knee injury. But again, team doesn't seem like it's anything too serious. So that's your injury updates. I think we've covered all our bases, Anthony. I'm going to go inside before I get too soaked here. I do want to thank you guys for jumping on in with us at the Browns on SI YouTube channel. And as always, you're following along at the Cleveland Browns on SI, the Cleveland Browns on SI website, where we have.
We're gonna get it.
Yeah,
Everyone knows.
At some point we'll get it down.
We're gonna get it.
It's kind of a mouthful. It's a better name, but it's a mouthful.
Yes.
But yeah, we appreciate you guys following along with all things Cleveland Browns as well over at the Cleveland Browns on SI website, where we have a ton of content from today. The announcement about who's going to be playing in that first preseason game is up there. Commentary from everybody today about the Brendan Aiyuk stuff. A whole assortment of things that you can find over there. So please go check it out. And we'll be back as always, leading you up to kickoff on Saturday. Browns will practice on Thursday. I don't think we'll have anybody on site that day, but we'll be back, obviously leading up to kickoff on Saturday and throughout the game to give you everything you need to know about the Cleveland Browns. So just keep it locked. We appreciate you guys jumping on in, and we'll be back with more coverage of your Cleveland Browns.